Okay, so today's video might actually turn out a little bit longer than usual, just because making compact video is actually more work and I just don't feel like it today, especially since this phone is also so weird. So the easiest way to explain it from my standpoint is it's like 50% really good with a lot of potential, and then it's like 50% just weird and like 0% unique with its own personality. And that's why I want to take a little bit more time to try to properly explain to you why this phone, even if I check it objectively from the rating standpoint, is really nice. I still don't know quite what to think of it. So first off, the design. Let's compare it. This is 6.28 inches, if I didn't get it wrong, with 19:9 with the notch, compared to 6 inches here with the OnePlus 5T. You can see it's actually quite nice and short, which is just a normal thing because of the notch now. It is kind of similarly wide, a little bit less actually, but therefore it is a bit thicker, and both have the same battery size. So they kind of went for the more bulky style, but therefore more compact in terms of the other two dimensions. So that's an absolute legit way, because the phone doesn't feel actually very wide, which is good. So one-hand usability, obviously, towards the top will be a little bit harder for people with shorter fingers like me, but the rest is fine. Build quality is mostly also fine, because it feels quite solid. Tactile feedback is okay, it's nothing special, a little bit mushy and a little bit more wiggle, but that's fine. But there are a few smaller details, like for example the transition from the glass to the sides, where this could have been smoothed in a little bit more. But nothing to really complain. That's complaining on a little bit bigger factor, but still, all those minor little details are enough for me to just give it 4.5 stars, but that's still a very good rating. Now the fingerprint read, a little bit high for me, but that's for most people, just for me, and it's not one that always works with an up swipe if you don't just try it. Usually if you hit it right, as you can see here, it works okay with a decent delay, and it is an okay, mostly reliable fingerprinter, but there are definitely better ones out there. Other than that, the camera protrudes just a little bit actually, which is really nice to see. Then we have the mic here, SD card and SIM card tray. Micro USB, no, just a joke, this is USB Type-C obviously. The speaker that has a dual speaker system. Mic, and yes, headphone jack is still there, notification LED is also there, and obviously there is also the notch. And I have to talk a little bit more about that, because actually on Twitter I complained about the fact that my notch does not hide completely, as you can see, because there is this option. Let me show, hide the notch, and now you obviously see the notch. And then there are 5 updates later, there was one, I actually got 5 updates since then, and now you can hide the notch. And I tweeted that mine doesn't hide completely, so what I did was a factory reset, and then the black line actually gets a little bit deeper. Nothing is really centered anymore in terms of height, but the notch wasn't visible anymore. Today I had to do a reboot because of something, not quite sure anymore what it was, and now the notch is not completely visible anymore. And there was one thing that I actually wanted to show, because if you have swiped down, you would have always seen this little bit of a like half notch. And if you would have done now this, where you can see where the clock goes away, then you would have seen the complete black line. But I guess this seems to be a bug in case how you maybe resets, or I don't know what it actually triggers and what it causes. But this is the worst implementation, because so far I've never seen a notch that it doesn't completely hide. And I'm not just talking about the fact that this is not hiding now. Even if it did, it was just a thicker piece, because this is the biggest notch in terms of thickness that I've seen. It's a little bit less wide than on some phones maybe, and they bragged about of how much smaller it is compared to Apple iPhone, but therefore we have to just, knock something off of that. Other than that, what else? Front is also flat with, like I said, this slightly sharp transition. We have a little bit of a chin. That's fine for me, because it still allows me to easily get access to the buttons, and they can be rearranged in case you care about that. Now the bezels on the sides are absolutely moderate, and what I definitely like, that it's not a super tall phone. It still feels more like a 16:9 phone, even though it's not. Now about the display, that one is also just a tad little bit weird, because what we have is this, as we have seen already, Splendid. And this is kind of like a Splendid engine, and I'm not quite sure what it's actually trying to do, because you have, for example, wide color gamut, which I think on the daily basis is a little bit too much. You have standard, which is then a little bit too bland, and customized. I took off a little bit saturation, because it felt a little bit too much for me. Obviously, if you like it, it's fine. You have a color temperature control, which is nice to see, but I'm not quite sure what I should think about the colors, because especially I think if apps allow for this wide color gamut, colors seem nice, a little bit oversaturated, but that's still fine. But then there are apps like, for example, Flamingo here, which has another issue anyways as well, which doesn't kind of seem to apply to this, and this looks completely pale and flat, completely without colors, and you can even see this now. All those icons now aren't fully saturated like they would be if I go, for example, in an app that allows for the color gamut. This now is actually even more so. So I'm not quite sure what this actually causes, but a little bit more about that later. But the display with 580 lux, actually one of the very bright ones. Viewing angles are absolutely nice. White point was good. The IPS glow is a little bit more visible than on some other phones these days, so this is a little bit below average. But colors, like I said, mostly still fine. But there is a little bit something about the color calibration which I'm just not the biggest fan of, because some things just seem wrong calibrated. And I'm not even saying overly saturated, just a little bit wrong. And yeah, that's hard for me to properly explain, just not right. Okay, speaker. Okay, I guess this is not a thing that you will hear all that much over the microphone, but it is a very loud one. And this is actually such a loud speaker that which I usually always do, didn't use it with full volume. I usually use it like 1 or levels 2 before. And therefore it almost got 5 stars. The only reason why I really gave it just barely 4.5, so very, very close, so pretty much one of the best 4.5 star speakers, is because it distorts a little bit. But without that distortion, because of the great volume and still very good sound, it would have almost gotten 5 stars. Because if you lower the volume, get rid of the distortion, then it just isn't quite as loud anymore. So very, very close, but still a very nice speaker. And also the headphone jack, I have to say, I did not expect it to be that loud, that powerful. So this can drive actually even some quite decent headphones, and the quality was absolutely nice. So way better than I would have expected. Way better than what you usually get. Now, in terms of performance, I have to say, actually super nice besides one app. And this is actually an app that I use so many times. This is Flamingo, and I've said that already. I mentioned this because of the weird flatness of the colors. Now look of how this app runs. Completely laggy. Now, this is the only app that I've found so far. So I think I've never seen this, because this app runs usually always perfect. And for example, if we switch, for example, now to my kind of alternate Twitter app, as you can see, battery smooth. And this is super close to a Snapdragon 660, and most people would never notice the difference. As you can see, everything is nice and lag-free, nice and responsive. Apps load quite nice. Multitasking was top. As you can see here, all is fine. Totally smooth. And it's just this one app that I don't get, which is a very important app for me. And this is just a sign that maybe because the color doesn't apply and maybe the performance doesn't apply, this could be an engine that if some other apps would use it, could maybe turn out that bad as well. So I'm not quite so sure about that. Now, gaming performance is fine. Nice mid-range level. But the next thing that I'm also not quite sure, and this time it actually might be that my charger is broken, because it is a 5-volt 2-amp charger. Anyone want to guess how long it took to charge? I'll leave you a few seconds. Okay, wrong. No matter what you thought, no. 2 hours and 50, and that just can't be right, because what usually with quick charge would turn out, even without quick charge. So I would assume usually 1 hour 40, 1 hour 50 max. It should not be more. So this time I really don't know, because I wanted to try it with a different quick charge charger, but I just completely forgot it in time for the review, so I wouldn't worry about it. Because when I tried yesterday and charged it with a normal charger, it seemed already very fast. I just didn't measure it, but the other value is wrong. Now about the actual battery life, 6 hours on mobile data, roughly that, and then 8 on Wi-Fi. It's not a great value, even though I have to say overnight, one night I've tried it was like 9 hours with 2, maybe 3% of standby drain, which would have been amazing. But yeah, standby drain is actually surprisingly good, so very good. It barely misses 4.5 stars, because then I would wish for more on Wi-Fi, but totally solid. Now the next thing, this is the most non-unique thing, because I already think that the design looks kind of like a mix between maybe an iPhone and a Huawei P20 or something like that. So I would wish for something more unique, and especially with the notch. But the software, now look at this. We have an app drawer, fine. We have, what is that? That looks like a one-to-one ripoff from Samsung's UI. Just a little bit cheaper with less features. I don't know how they could get away with that. This looks so similar. And even though there is actually a theming engine, I tried like 30 themes and all of them pretty much change BS. They changed like they changed the icons and the wallpaper, but not really the UI. And if they change this background on the quick settings, then it looks super ugly with a lot of jagged lines. So kind of like we wanted to do a different system because the old UI was bad and we just replaced it with one that usually is fine. But yeah, other than that, in terms of features, let's actually go through them just so you can see how it differs from what it actually seems to copy. Now, display settings, as you can see here, sleep timer, navigation bar you can change. As you can see here with the recent apps button, you can give it a long tab option. You can hide the navigation bar, LED indicator lift to check the phone. That's actually quite a nice feature in case you want that. In terms of wallpaper, obviously wallpaper. That wasn't all that hard to find out. Security and lock screen. It has face unlock. It's not the very fastest one, but it works. I can actually show you. So let's turn it on and wait. Yeah. So yeah, it just doesn't want to work right now. It usually works quite okay. Page marker, twin apps, Game Genie, Zenmoji. So Game Genie for games. With the game toolbar, you can change the resolution and so on. Zenmoji, nothing you really need to know. Safeguard as well. And OptiFlex. I mean, they tried to add a lot of features, but not really useful ones. There's a kit mode and easy mode left to check once again, which is weird, but that's a quick action screenshot, instant camera, fingerprint gesture for the notification swipe down, Zen motion, pocket mode, and glove. So you can see there are quite a lot of features. If they are all useful for you, that's something you can decide. Now, I can't really judge how updates will work out because I got 5 already, which doesn't have to mean a lot because mostly they fix like bugs, not the one with the notch for me and camera improvements and so on. How quick it will get I don't know. Now, next thing, camera. Let's check that software. There's actually one extra app which is called Selfie Master. Yeah, that's all I'm gonna say. You don't need to know more about that. Other than that, let's get to the depth effect. There is, for example, an HDR auto, obviously. You can change that. 4:3, you can change the resolution. There's a portrait mode. It works quite okay. You can actually change the different kind of resolutions. Then video quality, we can change for 4K, 18:9, so 1080p, 1080p, 1080p 60, 1080p 120, and so on. A lot of nice things. The UI works okay. There is a landscape or a wide angle mode. Completely forget that. It's not worth it. There is a pro mode. So yeah, I think that's good enough. So let's check the pictures. And I actually did not really sort them, what I usually do, because I did not feel like it. So this is early in the morning. Not that great. So low light capabilities definitely are not all that impressive. As you can see, this was with the flash and this was without the flash. I'm not quite sure which one looks weirder. Because this cam, I don't know, the colors on the display are a little bit weird, but the color science of the camera is completely weird. For example, here, now this, in normal situation, actually looks fine here as well. But now let's see the wide angle mode. Everything gets mushy, colors look completely different, as you can see. And I don't know. Now, like I said, low light, not impressive. Outside, some pictures like this one turn out absolutely nice. And the focus was mostly fine. But then there are so many weird pictures. But the main camera is actually the best aspect, because as you can see here, most pictures look absolutely fine. And like usually I show like 60 pictures in a review. This has like 93, but I will go through a few more. So there is a portrait mode, it works fine. Now this, for example, auto HDR looks quite nice. Absolutely. So the main cam is good, even though not maybe much more. I've heard so much great things about this camera, but I don't really see it, especially like the wide angle mode. I don't know, it loses so many details if we go in, and the colors just look so wrong. And generally, some pictures look a little bit washed out. And yeah, as you can see here. Like I said, I don't really want to spend too much time on that. Just so you've seen. Okay, now let's talk about selfies. no, not good. First of all, of course not sharp yet from that distance, that's normal. Now it's okay, but look at this color, and no, beauty mode is off. It's just that colors are so completely weird. As you can see here now, it's completely flat. There is no contrast. Sharpness isn't bad, but it seems to cut. And this is, for example, the portrait mode. Sometimes it just does this. I have no idea why. Otherwise, I don't know what this was supposed to happen. Yeah, so as you can see here, almost the same shot, completely different also. So even the results heavily vary. Now the portrait mode itself works kind of okay if it maybe doesn't cut off half of my not all that much existent hair, but still, as you can see, the colors. What is this supposed to be? It looks like I'm almost underwater. And I don't really want to complain too much about this, but the selfie cam is so weird. The colors are just so completely off, especially if you use the portrait mode. But not always. Inside, yeah, you can see. I don't really have to talk much more, because I don't want to bash the phone. I don't want to bash the camera, but oh, yeah, flash. This is with the kind of software flash. Yeah. Low light, like I said, too grainy, not sharp enough. The white mode, forget that. And yeah, let's talk about video. Am I so happy with that? Not really. First of all, a little bit too much artifacting going on. 4K isn't really stabilized, as you can see here. Sharpness is actually quite okay, but as you can see during movement, there is just a little bit too much, kind of like a blurry effect, but with artifacts going on. So video is okay, especially if you don't move too much. Sharpness is fine. Autofocus is mostly okay. Yeah, that's that. Now 1080p 60. No, 1080p 60 actually didn't work, so this is 1080p 30, because for some reason after the last update 1080p 60 crashed immediately the app every time. So this is 1080p 30, which has though quite a nice EIS. I mean, I tried 1080p 60 before the one update and it worked okay, but I don't really have that video anymore. So 1080p 60 obviously loses in terms of quality. Now, the selfie cam wasn't already great for pics. How is it for video? Yeah, a little bit better than the pictures, but still not good, because as you can see, there is a lot of morphing going on. If I move the camera due to the heavy EIS, there is a lot of kind of morphing going on of the head. It's wobbling a lot, and as you can see, completely overexposed. It doesn't know what else to do. If you have a little bit less light, like you will see in a second, then it looks okay. Like here, this is okay. But the moment I get into sun, yeah, not so much. Now inside, you can see the results. Also a little bit overexposed, actually quite noticeable. And the mic is okay. It's a decent 3.5 stars if I remember correctly, but it could have sounded a little bit more high quality, maybe a little bit fuller, but yeah, it's a little bit weird morphing. So, rating and conclusion. Price, roughly 380 euro from what I get. That's what it costed on Gearbest when I got it. I think this time I actually do the following. I'm not gonna recommend it, but I'm not gonna not recommend it. So I'm not gonna tell you if you should buy it or not, because I don't know what I should do with this phone. I mean, it has the potential. The hardware isn't bad. The display is nice, but then again, weirdly calibrated. The speaker, really loud, but it distorts. Smaller issue. Performance, absolutely top for a mid-ranger. It's just flamingo. I have no idea what's going on there. Battery life is not the very best one, but still totally fine. The software, I mean, it's not unique. It doesn't have any own personality, but it at least gets the job done. I can't really judge the updates. And then the camera, which I think is quite a disappointment. So everyone who thought he would get a great camera here, I don't see it. Now, obviously with updates and maybe if you use a different... Now, here's one thing. Many people tell me this. You could use open camera and maybe get way better results. But I review the phone like I get it, because this is the way 95% will use it. So I can't just include a different camera. And I can't be bothered every time to try different apps to get a better result. I can just tell you what I got out of the box, and this is what I get. So... if you would, let's try it this way. Like I said, I can't recommend. This is the thing. Objectively, it's actually not a bad phone, and you have seen the rating. It's solid, and for the price, if you don't think there is something you like maybe more or something, maybe go for it. But if you ask me subjectively, as maybe for example a friend, hey, would you recommend me this phone? No. If you have any further questions or want to know why specifically some things and whatever else, just let me know down there in the comments below. And I'm gonna check 20 minutes, so a little bit longer than usually, so I was actually quite right. So I hope this video was helpful, and yep, until next time, bye.